Thank you very much, Suzanne. It made me think of the, I'm sure Trump held a poster up it more than once, many times, jobs for coal or something like that. Do you remember those? And where was the American equivalent of the TUC, the AFL-CIO, saying this is not the way forward? But, unions have really got to grab some of that language and some of those arguments. So, Mika.
Yep, there you go.
Yes, please.
So I've got various different hats. The hat that so my job is working for an organisation called Platform, which is how I'm listed here. And Platform is a think tank campaigning organisation that focuses on challenging the power of the oil and gas industry and building a positive, progressive energy future. And in that context, I do a lot of work on divesting local government pension funds, reinvesting them into building all the things that we want, social housing, public transport, community energy. Also working on council-run energy companies. What does it mean for Nottingham to set up Robin Hood Energy? Can we get something like that going in London and elsewhere across the country? And also a lot of work on the North Sea. We're a different hat on. I wrote a report for the Green Party, which was a lot of what I'll talk about, which is about transitioning away from the North Sea and building the new economy and the jobs. With a different hat on. There's something called Labour Energy Forum for anyone here who's in the Labour Party that wants to be pushing a lot of these things. We're trying to push them through the party, and there's lots of more motions. So if you're interested in these. But so in terms of Scotland, in terms of the North Sea, I think obviously all of us here are on the same page in terms of climate. We need serious climate action yesterday. It needs to start. And we need to be aiming for 1.5 degrees maximum climate warming. The Paris Agreement says absolute minimum maximum. We definitely need less than 2 degrees, aim for 1.5. And that clearly, to achieve that, we need to leave lots of fossil fuels in the ground. 60%, 70%, 80%. Most of proven fossil fuel reserves need to stay in the ground. Now when we talk about that, normally, in my experience, we say 80% of fossil fuels, but we just think they're somewhere, and we normally think they're somewhere far away. The ones that we're going to leave in the ground are probably in Saudi, or they're probably in Venezuela, somewhere else. And we don't normally think, well, maybe they're in the UK. Sometimes we go, oh, fracking, yeah. Fracking is not extracting very much yet, luckily. But the UK does extract quite a lot of oil and gas out of the North Sea. And if we're saying 80% needs to stay in the ground, we've already taken our fair share of the ground. I mean, even just to take 20% more out, it's being quite saying we deserve more than the rest of the world. Let's say we did take 20% of proven reserves in the North Sea out. That would mean we'd have to, at current rates of extraction, we'd have to stop by next summer, which is quite soon. Now, I'm not saying, okay, that's something we should be going. I do say that a lot in talks, but I'm not saying that's a campaign to run, because it's pretty hard to hold that. But we need to recognise that that's what science says, and what do we do with that? And maybe that means extracting less over a longer period of time. Slowing the rate of extraction, which actually in Norway, the similar campaign, 100,000 climate jobs, because it's a bit smaller, one of their core demands has been creating the jobs and capping oil extraction to a certain level. But if we're going to talk about slowing down the North Sea, then we've got to think about, we can't just talk about that without thinking, well, what does that mean for communities and for livelihoods in North East Scotland? And we need to recognise that people are already losing their jobs, and Aberdeen has already been decimated through jobs being slashed. Now that's not because of climate action, that's because the oil companies have always been trying to slash jobs whenever they could, and with the fall in oil prices they've got a great excuse. So lots of people out of work, and some of those people are offshore rig workers, some of those people are people in the supply chain, but it's also those people that drive taxis and work in the cinema, because when you've got less jobs at one end of it, it does trickle through. So we've got to have some real answers on, okay, what's the future? How can there be jobs which are relevant jobs? Like, how do the skills in what we're proposing match up with the existing skills? How do the locations match up? Because it's all nice and good if we say we're going to create 200,000 jobs in Cornwall. Funny, there's lots of people living in Aberdeen who are losing their jobs. And we should also recognise that matching up skills, there's partly about going, okay, you have a skilled job and you're going to want a skilled job in the future where you'll feel good. But it's also saying, recognising that energy workers are going to be crucial to the new economy. It's not some charity thing. It's actually that we need them. And those skills, that expertise, that creativity is absolutely essential for building those clean industries of the future. And there's lots of renewables getting put in there, getting installed. And there's lots of, you see lots coming out from the renewables industry and from environmentalists saying there will be lots of jobs, But I think we as leftists need to also say, okay, we can't be making false promises here. We need to go, are these actually going, are these jobs really going to exist? Are they going to be decent jobs? And what do we need to do to make sure the jobs are there? So the UK has a lot of offshore wind installed already. It's really windy place, Scotland Cornwall especially. And in the UK as a whole, we've got more offshore wind installed than the rest of the world combined. And we're going to be putting a lot more in, 6 times more, not more, hopefully a lot more than that, but at least 6 times more. Even the Tories for that. The question is when. Well, one question is when. But the other question is, okay, well, we've already got more than the rest of the world combined, but how many jobs do we have comparatively to that? And if you look at the jobs in the early stage, like assessing the impacts of doing the planning, there's a lot, most of those jobs are here, because you've kind of got to be, and particularly in Scotland, they need to be there because you're going out and assessing where you're going to build it. And when you look at installation and maintaining it, then a lot of those jobs are also there, because you're going to go and put it there, you're going to maintain it, you're going to hire someone who's nearby and you're going to be based there. But the manufacturing, which is the big bit in the middle, because you've got to start the planning, the installation, maintenance, and you've got a big thing in the middle of manufacturing, which is actually where most of the jobs, the well-paid jobs in things like offshore wind and also marine energy are. And in that bit, only a small proportion are in Scotland, only a small portion are in the UK. I think it is useful to think about Scotland specifically, politics there, but also we need to create jobs in North Sea because of North Sea. What do we do then? How do we argue for those new clean industries in a way where those jobs are definitely going to be here? And part of the answer, it comes back to going, well, who owns that wind? If we've got more wind installed than the rest of the time, who owns the wind off the coast of Scotland? Who owns the wind off the coast of the rest of the UK? And lots of public institutions own it. There's a lot of the largest owners of offshore wind in the UK are public institutions. They're Danish, and Norwegian, and Swedish, and German. But they're not really British. There was one large British owner, which was the Green Investment Bank. And even that was a silent share. Which means there's space there. There's space there because A, it's clearly proven that it makes a lot of sense to have public companies building offshore wind, because that's what the rest of Europe is doing. And there's political space there to say, well, why don't we have a Scottish offshore wind company? Why don't we have a Wind of the North public company? Public companies that are, we make them democratically accountable. We find ways to structure them so that we're not seen as, okay, we're just trying to move history backwards. No, it's 21st century, new public entities that are democratically accountable that are going to locate industry, locate manufacturing in key locations. So they're going to have, because what you can do is you've got a public offshore wind company that's going to do the installation and owning of offshore wind. And that public company can then have higher local and buy local requirements. That's standard practice. TfL has that in London. They say, okay, we want 50% of the components to be sourced from here. We want 60% of the jobs to be people hired from the locality. If it's owned by the public in the first place, then we can make sure that the manufacturing is also there. And also, we can then go, makes it easy to say we're going to be installing this amount of long period of time the scale is there. And that allows the supply chains to be built up alongside. The supply chains bit, one of the things I think is really exciting, especially in the context of Lucas, is to go, well, how can we think about retooling existing supply chains? When you look at the supply chain for North Sea oil, there are lots of factories, there are lots of people working, and a lot of those people who would lose jobs from closing down North Sea oil are working in industries where they're producing components, producing cables, producing wiring, producing turbines. And to what extent are those useful for the new economy? And the research produced not by us, but produced by the government, by the department, the old Department of Business, Industry and Skills, Innovation Skills. By BIS, they broke down offshore wind into lots of different segments. So the supply chain, looked at the supply chain, they were like, okay, it's this bit, this bit, this bit, this bit, this bit, this bit, this bit. And they found that out of all of those different chunks, 75% of them had a very high overlap in terms of expertise with the offshore oil supply chain. And that was expertise in the offshore oil supply chain that had already been applied to wind. So this isn't like, oh, maybe it could work. Because it had already been applied to. And then there was another 20% that was very likely to, they just haven't applied it yet. So that means a lot of those factories can be retooled. They can be made part. So it's not about saying you're going to close down. It's not about saying you are not relevant to the future. It's saying actually these industries are absolutely essential to the future. And how do we make sure that shop floor expertise is at the centre? And that as much as possible, those supply chain companies are increasingly worker control. Because there's some that we can run publicly through the state and some which is less likely. And that brings me to, I think, well, there's a whole other bit I could talk about on my decommission, because we're going to have to clean up the North Sea in terms of getting rid of all the rigs that are sitting out there. That's going to cost a lot of money. Lots of that cost has been dumped on the public through subsidies. So that we're going to be carrying, as the public are going to carry 50% of the cost of cleaning up after people get shut walked away with profits. How do we again make sure that those jobs are relevant local? Because at the moment, a lot of the plan is you slice off the rigs and you tow them halfway around the world to find a place where people are paid the least and there's least regulation and not doing carefully. So how do we make sure actually they're being dismantled in their ports on the northeast coast of Scotland where we've got out in the first place? But in all of those different things, we need to think about what are the institutions that make that just transition possible. Because it's all nice and good to say, well, there will be jobs, or there could be jobs, but who will people work for in the new clean 21st century renewable and beyond that sector? And how do we start creating those institutions? How do we make sure that they're not just doing on a piece of paper, going, here's a plan? And I think, and this is not a critique on the climate jobs at all, because I think the National Climate Service is a very good idea. But I think we also don't need to wait until we've persuaded them to set up the National Climate Service to start building the elements within it. Because it's one of the things that politicians especially come back at me with is, well, the public sector doesn't have any expertise, so how could we possibly run anything from that? So if we start building the institutions more and more and more, then it's increasingly possible. Which is where it comes down to, okay, what are those institutions on a very local level? What are they on a regional level? So something like an energy company for London. Even City Cassette will set up energy for London. One of the reasons United backed the idea is because, and in fact, employees in the big six companies within Unite backed the idea of a new competitor to them, was because they saw it as an institution for just transition. And how do we do that on a bigger level through things like public offshore? How do we start setting up those institutions? And how do we make sure that those jobs are stable and are good and decent and are unionised? And part of that is about making sure that when we're fighting on the climate, we're also fighting for the new jobs to be good jobs. Because I get told all the time by people who are less lefty and more, they don't think about themselves as much, but environmentalists saying, look, in Germany there's 400,000 jobs in renewables. There's only 50,000 jobs in coal. So why are the city trade unions fighting for those 50,000 jobs? The thing is, those 50,000 jobs in coal are unionised and solid and secure and well paid. And okay, it's dirty, but it's secure. Whereas those 400,000 jobs in renewables are precarious, not a lot of them are. And we need to be making sure we are fighting for those new jobs to be good, which means telling environmentalists who don't talk about that, say no, you've got to talk about it. And it also means in our unions saying we need to be unionising these sectors, because when Gary Smith, who leads GMB in Scotland, comes again and again saying there are no good jobs in renewables, and it's like, well, I know people working offshore wind that really want to be unionised. And they keep going to you saying, will you unionise us? And you're not doing it. So it's going in both directions. I know, we need to be doing it. And I'll leave it there.